Hello and welcome. Today, I'm going to talk to you about something that can have a significant impact on your mental health or well-being. Cognitive distortions or thinking errors. Some people might also refer to these as unhelpful thinking patterns. If you've ever found yourself feeling overwhelmed by negative thoughts or perceiving situations in a way that feels more extreme than necessary, you may have experienced cognitive distortions or thinking errors. These distorted ways of thinking can contribute to stress, anxiety, and depression. But the good news is that by understanding them, we can begin to change how we think, feel, and behave. In this video, I'll explain what cognitive distortions or thinking errors are, how they affect us, and how we can start to challenge and overcome them. Cognitive distortions or thinking errors are unhelpful, biased ways of thinking that can negatively affect our emotions and behaviors. These distorted thoughts are pretty common for most of us and often arise automatically, which means we may not even realize that we're engaging in them. However, when left unchecked, these patterns of thinking can intensify feelings of anxiety, depression, and stress, making it harder to navigate life's challenges in a balanced way. Cognitive distortions or thinking errors are like mental shortcuts that lead us to see situations in exaggerated, unrealistic, or an overly negative light. They shape how we perceive events and influence how we feel about them. These distorted thoughts often create unnecessary emotional distress and can keep us stuck in cycles of negative thinking. So, let me give you a few examples of common cognitive distortions so you can start recognizing them in your own thinking. 1. All or nothing thinking. This is when we see things in extremes with no middle ground. For example, you might think, I didn't get the promotion, so I'm a total failure. Or if I'm not perfect, I'm worthless. This may be the kind of thinking that overlooks nuances and shades of gray that exist in most situations. 2. Catastrophizing. This distortion involves imagining the worst case scenario and blowing things out of proportion. For example, if you make a small mistake at work, you might think, I'm gonna get fired and my career will be ruined. Catastrophizing makes situations seem far worse than they actually are. 3. Mind reading. With this distortion, you assume you know what others are thinking without any concrete evidence. For example, you might think, I'm sure my friends think I'm boring, or the boss might be thinking about firing me. We can't actually read other people's minds, but this kind of thinking can make us feel anxious and self-conscious. Other common cognitive distortions might include overgeneralization. When we take one instance and apply it broadly, for example, I didn't do well on that test, so I never succeed at anything. Personalization. Taking responsibility for things outside of your control. For example, if my friend is upset, it's because I didn't do enough to cheer them up, or I did something wrong. Emotional reasoning. Believing that just because we feel a certain way must mean that it's true. For example, I feel like I'm failing, so I must be failing. Labeling. Assigning a global negative label to yourself or others based on just one incident. For example, I made a mistake, so I'm stupid. These distorted ways of thinking can color our perceptions of the world, making us more anxious, depressed, or frustrated than we need to be. The important thing is to know that these thoughts are not facts. They're simply patterns of thinking that we've learned over time, often as a result of past experience or negative self-beliefs. Just like any habit, these distortions can be unlearned. In Cognitive Behavioural Therapy, we work together to identify and challenge these thoughts. The goal isn't to eliminate all negative thoughts, but to recognize when they are distorted and replace them with more balanced, realistic thoughts. For example, if you catch yourself thinking, I always mess up, we might explore the evidence against that thought and find examples of times when you succeeded or learned from your mistakes. Over time, this practice helps create healthier thought patterns and reduces unnecessary emotional distress. One tool we often use in CBT to challenge cognitive distortions is thought records. This simple exercise helps you track your automatic thoughts, examine evidence for and against them, and create alternative, more balanced thoughts. It's a great way to start recognizing your cognitive distortions and begin shifting your mindset. If you're struggling with any of these cognitive distortions or thinking errors, I want to remind you that change is possible. Recognizing and challenging distorted thinking errors takes practice, but with the right tools and support through cognitive behavioral therapy, you can break free from these patterns and start viewing the world in a more balanced and realistic way. Over time, this can help reduce feelings of anxiety, depression, and stress, and improve your overall mental health and well-being. Here at the Ontario Structured Psychotherapy Program Central North, we offer government-funded, structured CBT in both self-guided and therapist-led formats. Make a self-referral on our website at www.therapyontario.ca today.